All right, in today's episode, we have a fantastic discussion set up with my friend Topher Gardner, otherwise known as Biocharisma. Biocharisma. Anyway, what we're going to be discussing is the landscape of food and agriculture, what's really going on under the soil, and a little bit about the industry and the process that our food goes through to get to us so that we can understand what to do about life when that process maybe is interrupted. All right, without any further ado, I'm here today to let it come through. All right, you guys, today I have a really cool guest. This man shares my first name, and he shares a lot of my smarts, my wit, my charming good looks, dashing good looks. You like charming or dashing?
Either.
Okay. Well, you can be dashing and I'll be charming.
I'll be dashing.
Okay, that
sounds
works.
Great.
So, his name is Topher Gardner. Now, I am Chris Topher, who goes by Chris, and he is Christopher, who goes by Topher. So we have found a way to have common ground, and we still share. We share a name, but he gets to have his letters, and I can have my letters, and we're not fighting.
Nope.
So
yeah, we would have the longest name ever. It's Chris Topher Gardner Field Crutch.
Christopher Gardner Field Crutch. And then try to put that in on a Scantron. It's like there's none of that.
All the consonants.
Exactly. So I'm here with Topher. I was just a guest and a panelist on his recent Elementals conference held in Missouri, and I had an absolute amazing time with Topher and with a lot of friends who share a similar kind of worldview about the way that the world works and some of how we can, like what we can do about that. And in my discussions and enjoyment just with Topher of how much time we had or how much fun we had this time earlier this year, we're definitely going to be there next year.
Whoop, whoop.
We've already talked about Elementals 27. Right. I'll be there. He'll be there. And I hope you'll be there too. But in the meantime, let's talk about something a lot more pressing and a lot more pertinent to what's going on right now. And that is this idea of food and the imminent shift underneath everybody's feet of what is happening in the agricultural kingdom. I say kingdom. In the agricultural industry. I mean, it might as well be a kingdom at this point. In the agricultural industry, as well as some best practices of what we can do about the drama that's happening right now that I honestly don't think a lot of people really know much about. So, Topher, I'm going to have you in a second explain the backstory, but I want to bring the viewer up to speed on exactly what Topher and I discussed that led into this very conversation right now. I got a text from him maybe 3 or 4 days ago, and he was like, "Hey, Senior Crutchfield, I hope you're doing well. But I really feel like it's been put on my heart that I need to talk about food and what's really going on in the world of fertilizer, farming, and agriculture." And part of that was, I'm sure, what you were going on internally was just bubbling internally for you to share both with me and your audience through your Substack. So you wrote a Substack article not that long ago. I just recently read that article, and I think it helped unpack even a whole new perspective for me of what's going on. And where I'm bringing this into my greater discussion for anybody who has been following the biopsy of a psyopsy is regarding the agricultural setup as it relates to the technology setup and the bigger endeavor that's, if you ask me, about the removal of autonomy and personal control. The food part of it has a lot to it plays a major factor. Now, I always knew that, but I, in the documentary, have focused more on how food plays a factor as it relates to the technology setup, how it's really the problem and it really should be the solution, but because it's so depleted of nutrients and being weaponized, it's more of a problem than a solution possibility. But what the documentary lacks, I won't say lacks, but what I focus on in the documentary is how it relates to technology. What I don't focus on as much is what Mr. Gardner here focuses on, and that's solutions. What we can do about what's really going on, how we can understand this, how we can approach this without fear, and how we can actually do something relatively inexpensive, locally and personally, that starts to reverse this issue for ourselves and our children and the generations moving forward. So without any more illustrious roundabout setup, Topher, can you explain to the audience today what it was that really got you convicted and passionate about food and carbon-based solutions?
Well, firstly, I had moved down to Central America, and I had found myself in this community of people that had all gringos from all over the world that had moved to the tropics for food sovereignty. But it was very difficult to do there because there wasn't any soil. And, we would do these practices of composting and all that type of stuff to try and build soil. But none of our farms were really taking off unless we did some really small scale under greenhouses and things like that. And some people had some good success. Or if you were planting, essentially tropical fruit trees from Southeast Asia that know how to kind of navigate that type of bauxite soil. And it wasn't until about 2010 or 2011 where I was failing pretty hard with my cacao trees. Cacao is chocolate, for those of you that don't know. And
that's what they always call me back in the day.
Senor Cacao.
Senor Cacao.
Yeah, my farm was suffering from these leafcutter ants that came in. And leafcutter ants are incredible. They're one of the only nitrogen-fixing insects in all of the tropics. So I didn't have a negative connotation towards the leafcutter ants in that way. But when they come, they're showing you that you have some weak or sick trees. And this happened to be my cacao grove that was getting pummeled pretty heavily. And I was just lamenting the fact to a permaculture expert in our area who he had hired me to build for one of his clients. And we would have these 6-hour drives to the client's, farm up in the north, who just happened to be the at that time the only whole food supplement company in the world. So I was learning all about nutrition and things like that from New Chapter Organics Farm, where I was building. What year is this? 2000. It was either 2010 or 2011.
Got it.
I think it was 2010 because I think it was 2010. I'm pretty sure it was 2010. And so he told me to look into terra preta. And so I did. I looked into terra preta, and those were the words that were used by the Spanish speakers down in South America to describe these huge lines of biochar that they were finding in the Amazon rainforest. So as the Amazon rainforest was being deforested, it's being deforested now, but as they were deforesting it, there's these avatar moments where they would be clearing these trees, and they would find these huge swaths of black earth. And so anthropologists and different people started to come in and look, how could there be this beautiful black dirt in these perfectly symmetrical rows? And then they were finding terracotta in them, and they were wondering what's the terracotta and all this other stuff. And they pretty much figured out after a while that they figured out the system that was being employed by the Amazonians from actually reading the conquistadors and what the conquistadors had said about the Amazonians, 600 years ago. God. And so I read it all. I was like, when Itai told me to look into something, I looked into it because that guy has the Midas touch. Everything he's ever told me to look into has been awesome.
Worth it, totally.
Yeah, so I kind of figured out on my own exactly how they were doing the cooking of the biomass. They would essentially dig these long canals, and then they would put these terracotta, they look like tandoori ovens. If you've ever been to India, that you have the semi-vase shaped tandoori ovens. Well, they would put those at the bottom of these long canals that they were, digging, and they'd do that every, I think it was 10 meters, every 30 feet. And then what they would do is the earth that they dug out and put on either side of that canal, they would plant with light demanders. And light demanders grow very fast, and they pretty much reach maturity in 6 to 8 months. And then they would chop all those light demanders down so that they would actually fall and fill the canal over those tandoori thingies. Mm-hmm. And then they would just put that earth back over top of them, and then they would light the tandoors. And how I figured that out was they showed a cross section of one of these canals with these ovens in them. And I was like, oh, that's a rocket mass heater. And at the time, my construction company mainly centered around me building rocket mass heaters for people. So I was like, oh, I know what that is. Oh, cool. And so I saw the air line in, the exhaust out, and I could see, and I was like, oh, okay, so they were doing pyrolysis in place. And that pyrolysis in place was perfect because they didn't have to move the dirt. Everything just fell right in there. Then they would cook it and boom, boom, done. And then they would just plant it afterwards. And this was incredible because now in the current day and age, when these excavators and these massive earth moving machines would move through there, that carbon was still there and that carbon was still viable. And it's not endemic to the area in the form that they were finding it in the ground.
It was
in
just
the tropics,
raw carbon.
Yeah. In the tropics, carbon is in the green leafy matter. It's what grows up. And usually, like where I was in Costa Rica, the indigenous plants would get all of their minerals and all that from the ocean air. They didn't get it from, the soil. So all of us dumb gringos that were down there trying to plant, European things in tropical soil weren't having a good time of it. It was because our whole frame of reference was, upside down. Like in the tropics, the canopy is what absorbs, not the root balls.
Got it.
So in figuring that out and just started to apply biochar because I could make it. And when I saw how they were making it with the rocket mass heaters, I was like, I can actually modify some of the rocket mass heaters I'm making. And I modified one, I think it's the very first video I ever put on Instagram I made what I call a rocket retort, and I burnt a hole through my dome. It was awesome. It was like one of the best happy accidents I ever did because I the fire got so hot and the whole theory of it worked better than I could imagine.
You could rebuild the dome.
Well, I was doing nylon cement at the time to protect this earthen dome. So I had it outside, but I had no idea that the flame would shoot up 7 feet. So it shot up, and obviously nylon will light, Yeah. And so I was like, it worked. Yay. And so I just started making a lot of biochar, and I thought, my projection onto the world was that people would want to make their own, the whole do-it-yourselfer thing. And so I just started to try and teach people, how to make it with these rocket retorts and all that. And in that world of supplying this very, very high end, and by high end, I mean extremely diamagnetic carbon, this biochar, I started interacting and rubbing elbows with some incredible people when it comes to permaculture, when it comes to biodynamic farming, all these people that really knew what they were doing, they were professionals and things like that. They were all into it, And so the problem was down there, I didn't have the means or the tech to actually be able to produce it at volume. And so it took a little learning curve with that. But the whole thing that I was seeing is even when I was helping people find their farms, the number one thing that we would look for other than water, clean, fresh water, was how much carbon is actually in the ground. And usually you would have a lot of the land that's out there has been abused. And what makes abused land abused is that there's no carbon in the soil. Mm. And if there's no carbon in the soil, there's no carrying capacity. That's usually when you have terrible runoff. And in Central America, the runoff, like it just rains a little bit and all the rivers are orange. Like, you know.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Because there's no carbon. There's no carbon left, I should say. Mm-hmm. When it was all a canopy jungle, it was obviously very different. So I ended up after, COVID's, my family, we moved back to the United States and we had like a little Venn diagram of wants and needs of the land that we were going to buy. And it had to have fresh water. It had to have a certain amount of acreage. You had to have a slope, like all these things, And also I wanted to be near where there was like wood pulp and like the wood industry for the biochar. And so we ended up about 4 years ago landing here in southern Missouri, and it's just been gangbusters since then with learning how the lumber industry works here, learning how to take their waste and convert it. And then just like getting all the good news of how to convert this biomass that's pretty much everywhere into the carbon that the hydrocarbons have been trying to replace. And that's what I wrote about on Substack, was the fact that like, because there isn't that much natural endemic carbon left in the ground because of the overusage of these hydrocarbon-based fertilizers. The way I like to say it is it's almost like, when people go take antibiotics, they get a little sniffle and they take antibiotics or they do this or that and they use antibiotics. It kills all the probiota that's in your system. Mm-hmm. Well, that's been happening to our soil, pretty much ever since the Dust Bowl. And that's a long time. That's like 100 years. So in that, our soil, our carbon levels have been going down, 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 and down. And like how we started with, like in Chinese medicine, the mycelium, the mushroom is like the elder wisdom that we can take into our system. Well, as the carbon dissipates, as it goes away, then that wisdom, that wisdom disappears. And then the way the water interacts with the soil, the way the soil interacts with the plants that are in it, it acts in a very juvenile manner. It acts very selfish. And these are I'm using terms from Victor Schauberger, right? Because he would describe things in their qualitative way, not necessarily in their scientific way, but in their qualitative way. And we've all been around some juvenile brats before. And they're kind of selfish and they're not really aware of their environment and they're very unstable. And that's the way a lot of these things are working because they don't have that elder wisdom of the carbon that was there and kept the ground stable for so long. And it used to hold the water. That's one of the biggest things that carbon does is it will hold the water. Like we have all this runoff in pretty much every agricultural setting in the world because there's no carbon to hold the water.
So, okay, I want to try to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. And what I want to do for the audience is also make sure that they're connecting the biochar solution with the bigger, greater agricultural problem. So about a decade and a half ago, you grew up in Florida again? Where'd you grow up again?
In South Florida.
South Florida. Yeah. And then about a decade and a half ago, you found yourself in Costa Rica learning about agriculture in a setting that you genuinely weren't from. Part of your issue with your cacao trees led you to discovering the greater general problem with agricultural, just that plants are going through on a general scale, and that's the depletion of nutrients, and more macro scale, the depletion of memory and information at the carbon level, which is causing even what carbon might be present to act in such a juvenile way in its metabolic processes within the soil. At the same time, I forget who you said it was that you were doing some digging, how you discovered the rocket mass heater concept in terms of what the ancients were doing. You were somewhere in Costa Rica, and you said you saw as they were doing these digs, these Just
I read about it
you
on
read
like
about
National Geographic. Like I said, my friend Itai said, look into Terra Preta.
That's right, Terra Preta.
So I just did a Google search, and I literally like I think it was like Discovery Channel or it was like one of these like mainstream things. I think it was National Geographic or the.
So
and
okay,
they were,
explain what Terra Preta is, because
Terra Preta is Amazonian biochar.
Okay, so it's like like primary Earth, would it translate to, or something like that?
I mean, kind of. You know, Terra is Earth. And yeah, I don't know what Preta. I don't know what Terra.
Don't quote us on the translations if you're listening. But my point is, so what I'm hearing is that a series of events led you to kind of figuring out that the real assault going on with agriculture and why you were having such a hard time applying your agricultural practices to a different culture than you were used to is really a systemic greater issue in the carbon that's available in the earth.
Yes. Excuse me.
Okay. So for the average person who might be listening to this and they're like, okay, well, I'm not a farmer. So like, explain to me what it is that I'm supposed to be so like worried about in context of like, you know, agricultural issues right now. Can you describe to the listener what you see on the horizon? Because what you spend time doing, and I'm glad you did, was setting up how there's a whole separate way to apply fertilization to one's crops.
Right.
And most people don't know, and even me, because I'm not an agricultural expert, I wasn't really aware that when you go and buy fertilizer in the store, you're buying, at the end of the day, long story short, a hydrocarbon-based solution.
A petroleum-based product.
Correct. So it's a petroleum derivative that is essentially acting like an antibiotic would be to an organic body in the case of probiotics in the ground. Like probiotics to your gut get affected in the way overuse of antibiotics do. Like probiotics in the soil get affected by overuse of fertilizer.
Absolutely.
Is that correct? Okay, so with that being underscored, I want to make it clear, I want to clarify with you that the real looming issue that I'm seeing develop, and I think you're speaking to as well, is that all of us, no matter really where you're from, are by and large used to agricultural practices, whether that's stuff we buy in the grocery store because some farmer did it for us, or whether you're the farmer that's actually doing the work. But the agricultural practices are based on buying fertilizer, fertilizing your soil, which hopefully gives it enough carbon and minerals to grow nutrients in the stuff you're growing out of it, or to grow anything at all. And then you harvest that and sell it, or you harvest that and eat it. In the wake of this present landscape, a lot of the fertilizer is just either on back order or is locked up in the Strait of Hormuz right now.
Right.
And a lot of the big, I don't know, you guys, head scratcher energy from the farming conversation and that subculture has to deal with equipment being not serviced and fertilizer being not available. So the two things you need for farming, fertilizer and a machine to help you do it all, are the two most challenged industries at the moment.
Yes. You said it so perfectly. The choke point in all of this is the fact that all modern farming on a large scale is essentially moving through a hydrocarbon. So whether it's a fuel like diesel that's actually running these combines or running these massive vehicles that move everything and process it, or it's the actual petrochemical that they're using in the form of a fertilizer to actually to not only just seed the fields,
but harvest it,
but to harvest it, but then also to like just make the ground even semi-viable to grow anything. See, the ground right now, like the amount of topsoil in the Midwest is scary low.
Scary.
And
low.
And the reason why that is, and the reason why it goes down every year is because the modern practices that are used that are hydrocarbon dependent. Hydrocarbon is just an oil dependency. That's all that means. The hydrocarbon, there's almost like a 1-to-1 ratio of hydrocarbon to carbohydrate. The carbohydrate would be the corn or the grains or the soy or whatever is being grown, right?
I never thought about that. That's etymologically got to be a link. Hydrocarbon.
Well, it's exactly the way our metabolism works. So our metabolism is a measure of like how we convert, how we transduce one thing into another.
Got it.
So the only two things that we can actually metabolize are carbohydrates or hydrocarbons. So that means we can either metabolize a sugar or a fat. And guess what? They're both carbon because we're carbon. It's very simple. And, we're told all this fancy stuff, but at the end of the day, it breaks down to how does this carbon process this form of carbon or this form of carbon?
Got it.
And that's why when I can cook any biomass out there and I end up with a carbon copy of the thing because the thing was the majority of it was made out of carbon.
Okay.
So
what I want you to continue. I can finish your thought and then I'll ask my question. I just want to go through a quick list of definitions, but we'll do that after you finish your thought.
Yeah, so to me, that's why it's so silly that we have all the carbon. The United States is full of natural capital. I've been to countries like Haiti that have very little natural capital. Like they don't have much stuff growing there. So it's very hard for them to convert biomass into carbon. The United States is rife with biomass. So if we just converted a little bit of that, we wouldn't have to go get the carbon in the form of oil or in the form of a petrochemical like a fertilizer all the way in the Middle East.
Got it. And most people probably don't even realize that most of the potting soil and fertilizer you see on your store shelf at the Walmart is from the Middle East. Y'all be some racist ass muckers up there. These doggone brown towel heads, if they knew what was good for them, meanwhile you're picking up a product that they made off your shelf in your own southern neighborhood.
It's hilarious.
Southern
like the urea plants, that's the big thing that they're talking about got destroyed over there. Was where like a lot of these fertilizers are made. They've been taking all this urea and then synthesizing that into essentially a nitrogen fixing type of fertilizer. Well, it's so funny. All you would have to do is go save your own pee or your family's pee, and you can make your own derivative of that.
Urea through the urethra.
Right.
Urethra.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like it's fun for me because I am like that, like Jack Johnson song, like recycle, reuse, repurpose. I like that. Like when people ask me about my hobbies, I'm like, I like taking that thing that was that and then like making it into this. Like I like converting. So when I can see like, oh, this waste product is actually very, very valuable. I actually don't even think waste should be a word. Waste is just indicative of ignorance because I've seen most things can be converted. I read this incredible book when I was first starting my journey into gardening called Food for 40 Generations. And it talked about how in Southeast Asia, they would use, human manure as the main fertilizer in their culture. And how they were able to grow immense amount of food because they essentially used human manure, and then they always made sure that when water was moving through their property, they slowed it down.
Oh,
meaning they would build switchback canals and all this stuff so the water would store on their property and do work for a long time.
Got it.
And in those two principles were like the main two principles, and they were able to proliferate incredible amounts of food, and their populations exploded because of it.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you said that because when I think of the concept of human manure, it's like it takes a little bit of cognitive dissonance to get around, but it's like we use it from cows all the time and nobody blinks twice. So before we continue, I want you to quickly, just in a sentence or so, explain a few terms, just for the person who might not be familiar with what you're talking about. Okay, biomass. How do you define biomass?
Biomass is anything that's ever grown ever.
So that's like tree branches, sticks, leaves.
Yep.
Plastic well, plastic hasn't grown, but it's technically
No, it came from a petrochemical. It came from an abiotic organism that became oil that got converted into the plastic mass that you have. In fact, my biggest learning of how to do biochar was from the Japanese.
Pyrolysis.
Because they do pyrolysis on their island of converting, because they make all these plastic goods and things like that. And their city states, they convert so much plastic back into oil because they are an island nation.
Okay, got it. So biomass is anything that would it be safe to say that almost everything we consider as waste could be considered biomass?
Almost all of it.
So
that's why I've written short stories, dude, that you would love, where the short stories are in the future. All these landfills are actually the energy sources, because you go to any landfill in the southeast of the United States and you'll see a bunch of pipes coming out of the top of it where they're lit on fire.
Yeah.
You'll see they're like a
constant flame,
constant torch. Well, what do you think that's from?
Oh yeah, the stuff they're burning. The actual.
No, it's all the off gassing.
Oh.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
see, this is the thing us city boys don't know much about. Like, we see some off gassing, and that's like it's got a different meaning. Like, they must be making plutonium at that plant, not converting plastic.
Well, they don't even have to do anything. So those dumps are gross, and those gross dumps have tons and tons of bacteria that are sitting there, and they're breaking down all of the carbon. They're breaking down all the
wrapper,
materials.
the glue, all of it.
All of it. It's all breaking down. And as it's breaking down, part of the breakdown are what we call volatile, gases. Well, guess what? When you light a volatile gas.
I know some volatile gas. Holla at that Taco Bell.
Right. So, like, it's all right here. We have billions of tons of biomass.
So, biomass is obviously this broad term for almost anything that we can consider as part of our daily life beyond its normal use function.
If anything that you use that was grown, like at some point, the raw material of it, let's just simplify it. Whatever you've ever seen anything grown. So if you've seen a tree grow, that's biomass. If you see the leaves on the tree, obviously grass grows, biomass. Humans, biomass. Every animal is biomass. Bio means life. So that means usually something that lives grows. That's part of the characteristics of life, is that there's a growth cycle in it. So anything that had a growth cycle and has like mass, that's biomass.
Got it. So you can convert any category of this stuff to pretty much biochar. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so define biochar, just as a blanket definition.
Biochar is when you take the biomass, you put it in an oxygen-free or very, very low oxygen environment, but you heat it above a certain temperature to where all those volatiles that I just spoke about exit. And after they exit, you're left with just the carbon matrix that actually comprise that thing with the mineral compounds. So like I've been doing, because we at the Elementals, a friend of ours brought up all these oysters. And so we were all just like, eating oysters and hanging out. And so we had all these oyster shells. Well, I can take those oyster shells that are mainly calcium. I can cook them. I can pyrolyze them. Pyrolyze is the technical term for cooking in a low oxygen environment.
Okay.
And when I cook above, 1600 degrees, but below 2000, like between 1600 and 2000 degrees is like the sweet spot. At 1800 degrees, all of your toxic or noxious volatiles, they get spent, meaning they burn up. Like they don't re-enter the atmosphere.
They kind of transmute into the other dimension and never re-amalgamize.
No, they're transduced into heat.
Okay, got it.
That's what fire does. Like I live by the alchemical term. I always forget how to say it in Latin, but the way it's translated is nature purified whole by fire. And so that's what the alchemists were doing when they would pyrolyze. This whole system was figured out by the alchemists, we're told 1,000 years ago, but it's probably way before that. They figured out, okay, in making the stone, the white stone, the philosopher's stone, you first needed to purify the sample. Well, you purified it by bringing it all the way down to its carbon core. And in bringing it down into its carbon core, they called that the Negretto phase. And so when you were left with zero volatiles and you were just left with the carbon, constituent.
It was black.
It was black. Yeah, you see my biochar, man.
I know. But that's what I'm saying. It's Negretto phase and Negro phase.
Exactly. And so you bring it down to its core. Exactly. Like there's so many parallels. You bring it all the way to the core, and then the alchemist would add the volatiles, the purified elements that it wanted to bring it to the philosopher's stone.
Got it.
So the pyrolyzation process is like those oyster shells that I brought up. Those oyster shells, we've all felt oyster shells in our hands. Like you could literally just crumble. And I have a video on Instagram of my little daughter with her little hand just crushing these oyster shells like there were nothing in her hand. And it's because of that pyrolyzation process. So what's left is the mineral of calcium, all the different sea minerals. There's probably a bunch of sodiums and different things like that in there. There's probably some precious metals in there. There's always metals.
Little gold chips and platinum chips and stuff like that.
And then the carbon and then the calcium, and that's all that's left. So that particular biochar reduces down to calcium oxide and carbon. And so I will use that just in spot treatments for the plants that need calcium.
Got it. Okay, so this is unpacking a whole new paradigm because, again, a big hurdle for myself in kind of this, I call it this project I'm working on called Hollywood to Homestead, where it's essentially me living literally in Hollywood and being like, I got to get out of here and figure out how to homestead or something. I have to figure out how, if the government decides it wants to act out, it doesn't have to affect me.
Right.
And that started on the journey, I guess we're talking 6 years ago. Or for me, it was about 10 or 11 years ago, but it really kicked into gear at the top of COVID. And what I learned in obtaining land in the mountains, not too far from where your family is from, is it's a lot to wrangle. It's not like you just open the app and say like fruit this season. There's a lot to learn. It was a big learning curve for me in particular. So what I found to be helpful in connecting with you is simply learning that two separate desires of mine, really three separate desires of mine, could really come into solution in one concept. That is the concept of biochar. Number one, I always said, I want to know that if I'm eating my food, eating healthy, I'm actually eating healthy and not eating a depleted version of a healthy idea of a fruit or vegetable. And I learned that even if you're eating like the healthiest you could possibly eat, it's still probably like 25% of the nutrients or maybe less.
Well, it looks the healthiest. That's the thing. That's what we were talking about at Confluence is that things can look really healthy. Like you could see an influencer on Instagram and you're like, man, they're so healthy because they look fit, right? And then they die like the next month, right? Whatever. So a lot of our plants are like that. They look because you can throw nitrogen at anything. And it acts like a steroid in the plant kingdom. Great. And it grows super fast, but it has no resilience to blight. It doesn't have resilience to all the different things. it's that whole thing I was bringing up earlier about the adolescence. Like what we have is adolescent soil. Like adolescence, you have tremendous growth during adolescence. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you also had the volatility and not knowing your head from your butt. Like
and tremendous failure too in adolescence.
Exactly. So we saw it. Like I laugh because I have friends that I kind of burst their bubbles every once in a while because they just don't have the range of experience I have when it comes to plants and stuff like that. And they're like, "Oh, I really like this fruit, and I buy it organic from here." I'm like, there's no such thing as that fruit as organic.
Yeah, especially if it was a GMO fruit from the rip.
Right, and I'll explain to them. I'm like, look, I lived in the region where that was grown and shipped out. Like, I'm letting you know there are these little flies that get into it the second it starts to grow. So what the companies have to do is they have to spray it with X, Y, and Z to make sure that those little bugs don't get in there so that they don't nest. So by the time you get it in Publix or wherever, you don't have, this rotted piece of fruit. And so they could claim it's organic, but I'm letting you know there's no such thing. That fruit doesn't exist in nature. And so it exists right there in front of you. Like you have it. I'm not saying it that you're imagining it. But that fruit is a Frankenstein thing that you're being lied to about the inputs that went into it. Like almost the entire pineapple industry is that. So like when you see the fields of the way Dole pineapple and Del Monte pineapple grow, there are pineapples like in Costa Rica, Central America, and Hawaii. Mm-hmm. You would never eat a pineapple ever again.
Oh, really? Don't say that. I kind of like pineapples.
I love pineapple, and I endeavored to grow it.
Man, because your name ain't Del Monte, it didn't work.
Dude, what they do is just disgusting. It's what they're doing in the United States with corn. Like pretty much, and this gets to the whole core of what we're talking about, the industrialization of agriculture, because we've centralized the growers, right? These growers just plant whatever they can on top of what they just planted. Like in Iowa, they're like, we plant corn on top of our corn. Like everybody's doing the same thing, whether it's a pineapple or it's corn or it's wheat. They're overplanting these areas because they just throw a ton of chemical at these things. And they're just like, okay, grow. Mm-hmm. And they do grow. But by the time you get it, it's like that supermodel. She looks fine, but she
has some mental health problems inside. And you about to have some mental health problems dealing with her.
She has that crazy hot,
Yeah, exactly. It comes back and forth. It started real hot and then it turned real crazy.
Well, dude, I mean, talking to the people I know, like just like my absolute ignorance around the world of corn. It wasn't until I was training, a team in Mexico, like, God, that was 2006, 2007. And they were telling me that they had 90 varieties of corn in 2006 and 2007. Maíz, in Mexico.
Maíz, yeah.
Now there's 5.
In Mexico, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was one. Yellow corn or the colorful corn you see at the pumpkin patch.
Dude, and so that's what I'm saying is like these companies, the industrialization of food is really taking away variety, it's taking away quality, and it's built to fail because of the bottleneck of the petrochemical. It's literally like almost all big industry is built to fail.
With this one
because
bottleneck.
Government always gets bigger when these big industries fail. And that's the only job of government is to grow. I mean, people don't understand that. Like you look at the historical precedences of governments, of the mind control, the people when we give up our, I guess you would say, our ability to take responsibility, and we say, "Hey, you over there, you're responsible for me. You can grow my food. You can do this. You can do that." when that occurs at the scale that it's occurring at, you get companies like Del Monte, you get companies like all these other ones like Bayer and the rest of it, that they're really like, okay, we have this demand. The way we can make X profit with this amount of demand is we rig these markets. We totally, shunt energy away from that. And then we just plant corn on top of corn. And then we do the thing that's not going to lead to you having nutrients.
Right. It's like you can decide whether the audience can decide whether it's greed or purposeful denutrientization. But either way, it leads to no nutrients and a singular bottleneck in the pipeline. So, okay. So like the picture that's being clarified in my mind of how this all looks and why I really think that this is helpful that you're explaining kind of some of the like nerdier aspects of like the chemistry behind it all. It's because I think that these subtle shifts in just chemical understanding start to unlock like, oh, okay, there are other options. Like if I do have other tools to kind of like help close the gap between what used to be and what's about to be. So do you find that like the biggest urgency, like what do you see? What's the imminent threat that's like if I'm listening and somebody just tuned in and like, okay, I've been hearing you guys up to now. I hear what you're saying, but like, why should I be worried? What would you tell them?
Well, usually our food is anywhere from 6 months to a year old. So what that means is it traveled a long way to get to you. And so I grew up in South Florida, as we already brought up, and I got kind of trained in all this already. Like I know how the just-in-time system works.
Mm-hmm. So, JIT meaning by the time it gets to you is just in time before it spoils.
Just in time. And in the United States, that's been reduced from 3 days down to 42 hours.
Oh, wow. So
what that means is in 42 hours, if it's not stocked on the shelves, it ain't there. Like that's how quick it is.
Whoa. Okay, back up for a second, because maybe I'm misunderstanding the just in time. When you say within 42 hours, if it's not stocked on the shelf, it ain't there?
It ain't there.
What do you mean by that?
You have 42 hours on average. On average.
I see. I see what you're saying.
Because nobody can. So how I need to say this in a very metered way. Storage costs a lot of money.
Right.
So like you're a data guy, you're storing tons of data with these big files. Mm-hmm. You could inform everybody what it costs to store that. If you're storing that in the cloud, it costs X amount. Well, when you start storing hard goods, that costs a ton of money.
Right.
So the just-in-time system, which is built on petroleum, by the way.
Right.
That whole petroleum-based just-in-time system is because the storefront, the Amazon, whoever is supplying the thing to you is trying not to have it in their storehouses sitting that long.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, now this makes a lot of sense because I have a good friend that I grew up with who became the manager of a large grocery store. Like he managed maybe 5 or 6 branches of a really large chain. And one of his co-managers is the manager of the chain that's actually near where we live. And I've asked both of them separately if the trucks were to not come, like if something were to happen and your delivery trucks couldn't come, how long would it take you to run out of food? And they all say 24 to 36 hours.
Yeah. That's beating the 42-hour estimate that I've read about. When I was in college in the mid-90s, I graduated with a finance degree with a minor in hospitality business. I was being groomed to be like a country club manager and be somewhat like connected to the food industry, right? And my business college was the Eli Broad Business College, which was like the number 3 business college in the United States for food replacement. So they knew in the mid 90s, this is like 30 years ago, they knew in the mid 90s that food was being replaced. They literally called it food replacement. But now the way they defined it was real food was fresh and it was made at home or grown at home. 80% by the time I graduated Michigan State in 1998, 80% of all the graduates of the Eli Broad Business College were going into the field of food replacement. Wow. All my cohorts, all the people I graduated with that I walked across and wore the Saturn hat with.
Half your football team, probably.
No, they didn't graduate.
Oh. What are you talking about? They didn't graduate. They just played football.
No. I mean, I was a kicker. I wasn't like a real football player. Like, I rarely saw those guys ever off the field or, like in class, I should say.
Sure. They were
so, and by the time you graduate in college, like I was in 400 and 500 level classes. So I was like doing internships and stuff like that. I had very little classroom time. And I was getting to see the real Monty and like talking to the president of, God, I always wanted to call it I think it was Hyatt. I think I met the president of the corporation. I forget the name of the
hotel corporation
that owns the Hyatts.
The Marriott Corporation. Or the Hilton Corporation.
Ones. And what were they talking? Like, what were we talking about? We were talking about the food replacement side of things.
That's wild. Because I'm hearing you and I'm going, I've never even heard those two words put together, but you had like 80% of your graduating class doing it when I was like just waltzing into freshman year of high school.
Yeah, that was 1998. I graduated 1998 and they were literally like, okay, this is the food replacement sector of hospitality business was the largest growing sector. So Cheney Brothers, all these massive companies that literally pre-make food. And I even know restaurants. Like I dated a restaurateur that lived she was from Belgium. She was trained in France. She opened a restaurant in Belgium. And the only way she could even afford to stay in business was, one, her parents owned the property, so she wasn't paying rent. And two, she was doing her own food replacement, meaning she could not cook fresh. She had to pre-make everything. Her entire menu was essentially pre-made. And on the night, like when the orders were coming in, take it out of the freezer, reheat. Take it out of the freezer, reheat. Take it out of the freezer, reheat.
Wow. Including the
excellent.
Belgian waffles?
All of it. Like she would saute like a sauce, or whatever, but she was a one-woman band other than when I was her sous chef. But I was only her sous chef because I was helping her pre-make the lasagnas or pre-make the stews and all this type of stuff. And it reminded me of college because it's like, oh, yeah, I did a sous chef for, a summer in this particular restaurant. I loved it. Like, I love that team atmosphere. And so I thought it was really cool and I love to cook. So I was like, okay, this is a neat thing. But she, in her own little way, was doing meal replacement.
Yeah, wow. And that's at a small individual level. So
she only made this much profit, bro. This much. So now, she did buy very good, like she didn't skimp on the actual food cost side of things. But the only way she could turn a profit, and by the way, she didn't have to pay rent because her parents owned the building. The only way she could turn a profit was because she pre-made most of the food. And so that allowed her on nights of service to only have one or two people that she had to pay. Like she was acting as the sous chef.
As her own sous chef, yeah.
There's not a restaurant. I was talking to my wife about this the other day. I said, like, with what we're going to see in the next 6 months is we're going to see either restaurants double their prices or go out of business. Because the food replacement world is going to be the first one to show the real numbers. They're going to be like either that or they're going to be fudging what they're actually putting into
the food. Yeah.
Like everybody gets the same artichoke dip. no matter where you are, they all buy it from Cheney Brothers, and it's probably made in this factory. Who knows what those artichokes are made
10
of?
years ago. Them artichokes came from an underground lab somewhere. So you're bringing up a good point, because the restaurant industry, obviously the grocery store industry, these are two different aspects of our food that we really don't know where it comes from. Like, it tastes good. It cost me $15 plus tax and tip, but we really generally don't ask questions. And even if you do, you're kind of like that Portlandia skit. Like, is it local? Is it local? Like, where was this chicken raised? Is it local a little bit? Is it local? It's like, that's the stigma. And even in Portland, I'm sure they still be getting stuff from places that they don't really realize it comes from. I wanted to circle back to something you said earlier, because I got into it with this lady. I very seldom get into it with anyone online, but I got into it with this individual who was very, very adamant that the non-GMO label had rigorous testing and ensured that that organic, or maybe it was that the organic label was non-GMO. Because as like, I know you know that this is BS, but like, remind me of what the official narrative is. Is it that all organic stuff is considered non-GMO? Label. That's what I think. Say that one more time.
I don't actually know. Organic, but from USDA standard, just means it's of carbon, which everything is of
right.
carbon.
But so like, I think that it was the non-GMO. I forget how the argument was phrased. I'd have to go back because it was a couple years ago. But it was between myself and another content creator about how things that are labeled certified non-GMO or certified organic are, because of the standards that go into the testing. And my whole premise is like, why are we appealing to the same standards bodies that's lied to us about every other standard in the past? Like, they can just say that. They just say that. They just make up some rules and say it, and then it is. And then you still want, oh, it isn't because they said it isn't. It's like, no. They just fake half these fruits, and then they like decide not to spray Roundup on the fake fruit, and you want to call that organic or non-GMO. It's a fake fruit. It doesn't matter if you put water or some other chemicals on it. It's still like not an actual thing. Like,
when you say fake, do you mean hybridized?
I mean hybridized, and I say fake. So now there's like all new drop down menus on what fake can mean. I mean hybridized or non-original or non. Like, I guess it's all organic since it's all growing as a natural thing, or like a semi-natural thing. But what I'd like, because you mentioned it earlier about the pineapples and people who swear that they're getting some product on the receiving end, and you're like, you have no clue how this is made on the developing end. What have you, like, what could you, if you could just rattle off the ones that are on the top of your head, what are the most surprising fruits or veggies or crops in general that the average person just has no clue of? Like, pineapples is a great example, because I would have just thought that somewhere in some tropical place some guy's chopping down pineapples. I don't really ever buy Dole or Del Monte pineapples that much. I never really thought about it.
Even they sell to the, they'll have their, what they call their organic plot. The biggest thing, the reason why the pineapples are so upsetting is, I'm a soil maker, and the way they harvest the pineapples is they take a bulldozer and they just scour. They get the bulldozer blade underneath all the pineapples, and they just scour they just take it all the way down to the red dirt. And so the areas in Costa Rica and southern Costa Rica, south of Perez Zeledon, where those big plantations are, they've lost like 10 feet of topsoil.
10 feet, that's a lot.
10 feet is huge. Like what used to be like these big rolling hills and stuff like that they're gone.
These graded flat parking lots.
And it's because they just hit it. Because, pineapples, they're spiky. We've all had the pineapple top that's spiky. Well, the way they grow in a plant that is spiky. And when those get big, it's kind of hard to pick them. And they plant them so tight together that you just have a field of spikes. So I'm sure it was like, 60 or 70 years ago, they figured out, hey, we're not going to pay anybody to just go pick these things.
Hmm.
We're just going to bulldoze all the earth.
So it's kind of an egregious harvesting process. I mean, it's functional, but it's kind of also abusive at the same time.
Yeah. The same thing with heart of palm. They're like, oh, heart of palm, yummy. Well, the heart of palm is literally the heart of a palm tree. So they just cut down all the palm trees and take the heart out. So literally, I had my neighbor in Costa Rica. She was, she was crazy. She was like straight up part indigenous,
she's seen it all.
Part Costa Rican, and she went crazy. Her family committed her, and I wanted to buy her property to add onto my farm. It was like maybe a quarter of an acre. It's a small piece of land. But she had these beautiful old coconut palm trees. It must have been like 40 or 50 years old. They're beautiful and produce like the best sweet, coconut water. Yeah. And I was like, I want that because that's the other side of my canal. So I'll have both sides of the waterway.
And coconuts.
And I want those coconuts, right? Her family came over one afternoon for a barbecue, cut down all of the coconut trees, and all they took was the little heart of palm, a foot long, dude, out of these coconut trees that were 40 years old that were producing thousands and thousands of good calories. I wanted to vomit. Because I could see from my deck, I could see the tops of those palm trees in the past. And then I heard them partying and stuff like that. And I didn't really pay attention until the next morning. I looked over there and I couldn't see the tops of the palms.
And you're like, wait, what?
And my heart just dropped. And I went over there, I cut through the forest, and I was like, they just cut those down just to eat the hearts of palm.
The whole tree.
And I was just like, the whole tree. So don't worry about the coconuts. Don't worry about all that food, the endless amount of food that palm trees give you. Let's just eat the heart of it.
Sounds very what would you call cannibalism in tree form?
I mean, it was like
like a Mortal Kombat finishing move.
For me, it was synonymous to like Selfridge, taking down the home tree in Avatar.
Right, exactly.
Literally, I was just like, I was like, you know not what you do, like.
Wow.
And her family had no connection to the land. In the 10 years that I was her neighbor, I never once saw her family ever over there. The second she's out of there and she's committed, they go there, they rape the land and made it useless. And then they come back to me asking me if I wanted to buy it. And I was like, no.
Not with that. You should have asked me that before y'all knocked the tree down.
Yeah, and that just shows like the lack of awareness and just the
other side of the coin in terms of what we can do. So how does one apply biochar? So because again, I'm approaching this whole conversation understanding that I am going to have to personally get much more food sovereign. Not because I have to right now, but because I kind of want to ahead of a dire situation so that I can be stress-free and also maybe be of service and help to others. But if I'm like one of my goals, I was talking to Chris Winters at Elementals, and I'm like, bro, I've got this whole map vision. It's like, you're part of it. Topher's going to come. Sabrina's going to come. I'm going to make this whole thing. Sabrina's even mentioned the same thing. I'm like, trust me, I'm already 10 steps ahead of you. I've got the idea. I've got the vision, bro. But I wanted to create a energetic, chemical, and like functional thing that isn't the most daunting thing ever. I don't need to run a grocery store. I just want to provide food for my family. And I've seen plenty of breakdowns that say you only honestly need like a good hot backyard to do that if you do it right. So right. I know that my plan is to create like a crystal grid of the property itself and like set an intention point, and even Eileen has offered to help tune it and all these different like aspects of kind of setting the energy right. Then I want Chris Winters to help me find the most ideal place to kind of like electroculturally, I'm using a fake word, right? Electroculturally amplify what we're doing. We have tremendous amounts of running water on the property. It's all spring fed. So what I want to do is create almost like a siphon system that feeds in from the northern part and feeds out from the southern part and uses the negative pressure of the like, where's my camera? The high-low to create that suction that amplifies the momentum that's already kind of going from north to south, because the property is a little lower on the south. It's about 3,500 feet up because it's in the mountains,
nice.
But it's about probably like 3,200 at the southern tip and about 35 and some change at the northern tip. So there is a slight like elevation drop as you're going from north to south. And what I really want to do is find how to best apply the biochar. So for someone who's starting out, obviously they don't have to start out by making their own on scale at the same scale that you do. But what like is a bag of it or a couple bags? Like how much do you need for like a quarter acre or an eighth of an acre garden? Like talk to me about percentages and like investments and like on the personal level, how can you begin to replace the concept of conventional fertilizer and growing tools to the point of where a homesteader or a person who's doing their own personal garden can take their first step in feeling like they have some control over their own food sovereignty?
Well, food sovereignty really starts with understanding that the majority of your calories aren't going to come from vegetables. I know that sounds a little bit, counterintuitive as being the guy that's telling you to like go
eat veggies
and build your soil.
Right.
But the first thing I would do if real food sovereignty is like your bag is get chickens and start feeding your chickens the biochar, because when the chickens poop with the biochar in it, that's the best fertilizer in the world.
Okay, and when you say feed them the biochar, like put it in their food or water?
Yeah. Our biggest buyer of our biochar right now are different chicken farms, because one, it eliminates the smell of their poo. The chickens get up to 15% bigger when they eat biochar, and they get bigger faster. They get up to full size anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks earlier.
It's like, so you did say it acts like a steroid. Well, you said nitrogen kind of acts like a steroid.
Well, it doesn't act like a steroid. It's like, I've talked to Sabrina about this. I've talked to Eileen McCusick about this. Like, imagine you without any chemicals or anything intruded upon you. Like right now, we live in a community where all the kids are unschooled, nobody's vaxxed, and all this, and all these little kids are brilliant. So essentially we're doing that for the chickens. Like when the chickens eat the biochar, they don't get vaxxed, they don't get antibiotics. They're so healthy, they don't need any of that stuff. So they become like little super chickens.
Super chicken feed. So, okay, when you're feeding them, what is that, like a tablespoon in their meal?
It's usually anywhere from 5 to 10% of their feed.
Is biochar.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, and it doesn't taste bad for the chicken? Or
no,
chicken
it's actually inert. Like,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you put it in your food?
I've eaten it, yeah.
Is it recommended for a human to eat it? Will a human grow 20 to 30% bigger and quicker?
Well, I have 6 different doctors, including Andy Kaufman and a few others that you might know, that are actually testing it as a binder. Because whenever you go to the hospital, if you go to the hospital and you're under toxic shock, they're going to give you something called activated carbon. Activated carbon is biochar.
Okay, got it. So they have this stuff.
They give that to you because biochar or activated carbon has a net negative charge. It absorbs everything with a net positive charge. Anything that's toxic in your GI tract or any animal's GI tract has a positive charge. That's called a free radical. Free radicals, reactive oxygen species, they all have a net positive charge. the biochar hoovers that all into the center of it, and it has so much surface area it can neutralize it.
Got it. So meaning you can drink it, but do you recommend that people drink it, or is it kind of still in the testing phase?
I can't make any recommendations to anybody. I'll tell you what I do. I make a toothpaste out of it because biochar is also an incredible cleaner, even though it's black.
It's like activated charcoal in that way?
It is activated charcoal.
Okay, got it. Like you mentioned.
But let's define terms. Activated charcoal is a misnomer.
Okay.
Because if it's charcoal, it can't be activated.
Like sovereign citizen. If
what
you're
they're
a citizen,
saying,
you
exactly,
can't be sovereign.
Exactly. So activated, you can have activated carbon, which is biochar, or you can have charcoal,
which is unactivated carbon.
It's unactivated and it's a different charge.
Got it.
So charcoal has a net positive charge. So what it ends up doing is, other than acting as something that builds body and soil and allows for good drainage, it actually depletes the soil of what it is that you want to make it to the plant.
In terms of activated charcoal, you mean?
No, I said charcoal.
Charcoal. Got it.
No, activated carbon, which is biochar, has the opposite charge.
Got it.
And so therefore it's distributing all the good things that the plant needs.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's kind of,
we started this whole conversation off with polarity, and just so people know, I'm a professional polarity therapist. Polarity matters, negative or positive matter. Biochar is negative. That means it absorbs the positive. Charcoal is positive, which means it absorbs the negative. In nature, just as a general rule of thumb, you want to distribute the negative charge and you want to absorb the positive charge.
Got it. Okay. This is clicking now because I kind of needed a bit of a recap to understand the connection at the electrical level. So what I'm essentially hearing from you is that the amount of use cases and application that a very highly concentrated carbon-rich derivative of any biomass, cooked, pyrolyzed down to the raw carbon in its completely negative ionic state, can not only absorb all your free radicals, but just be the baseline in any carbon-based engine that's both human body or plant body to to kind of so carbon, like every person's nutrient isn't carbon. I guess what is the carbon? So I understand the idea of sprinkling in the chicken feed, but from a plant or gardening standpoint, the carbon is allowing water to retain in the ground. The carbon is acting in the same way that otherwise fertilizer hydrocarbons are acting.
It's not acting as in the same way. It's doing what the fertilizer is trying to imitate. So the fertilizer is imitating a bunch of things. What the petrochemical fertilizer is imitating is nutrients. It's imitating something that, here's nutrients in the soil, so now you may grow. So it's just like if somebody takes, they do a non-specific testosterone therapy, and they don't actually do like the gene matched or whatever. They might grow muscle, but their body's going to break down much faster, right? That type of thing. That's what's happening with modern plants. And then therefore that's what's happening with the modern body.
And diet.
You see, like, I bring this example up all the time. Where my parents were from in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, they filmed the 1960s spring break movie, like Where the Boys Are At, right? And like my dad had this picture in our house, and like his entire graduating class of guys had 8-packs. And that was 60 years ago, man.
Now the entire graduating
they were
class
eating,
of
by the
any
way,
school.
they loved their McDonald's.
Yeah, I know,
but
right?
McDonald's had the peanut oil back then. They loved it wasn't like these people were trying to be organic or anything, but they grew up in a time where the ground still had some nutrient base. And in my family, his family, my dad's family, they had a victory garden after World War II where on a quarter acre they grew lots of food. My stepmother, I always give her tons and tons of credit for my athletic career because in high school, she owned a Thai restaurant. She was from Thailand. We grew lychee nut and longan and all these tropical fruits in our yard. We were always composting. We always had tomatoes and hot peppers and all that stuff from my garden, from their garden in the backyard. So it's been endemic in me, and I was always eating fresh food. Mm-hmm. Like it wasn't pre-made. I my entire high school career, and my friends would come over and we would just crush. Because you were an athlete, you know how it is. Like you're exercising and you could just eat for days.
Right? I eat like an entire large pizza. And
no problem.
And some snacks. I eat like 4 plates of spaghetti. Yeah, it's like for sure.
So in that, like the whole thing is that we moved from fresh food to replacement food that's full of all this chemical, and it's all being grown in soil that is using essentially the allegory, the analogy I'm trying to make here is it's using a synthetic steroid to get it to be the size and to look the way you've been conditioned to have it look.
Got it.
I grow tomatoes and stuff like that in my garden, cucumbers. They don't look as pretty as the stuff in certain stores.
But I bet they got more nutrients in them.
But they got a ton more nutrients because of all of the bacteria, because I have carbon in the soil, and the bacteria are the alchemists that are actually going, oh, the plant needs this, because the mycelium acts as like the information.
Exactly.
And then the bacteria are like, oh, okay, Fred over here needs this, and they convert it. So when you have the two of those together, which they guess what? If there's no carbon in the soil, they're not there. They need carbon as the medium to actually proliferate.
Yeah. This is all making sense.
Then it's not. That's the way nature intended it. The way we're doing it with the synthetic derivatives, it's almost like a simulacrum. It's a Frankenstein. It's like there's documentary called Frankenfood. And I mean that says it all. Like
right.
It is food in the sense that you can eat it and have a caloric intake. But all the terrainologists that we've been rubbing elbows with, they're all saying the same thing. Pretty much all the symptoms that people are having are coming from deficiencies. God. They're all coming from some sort of nutrient deficiency.
Mineral deficiency.
The mom's mom was, malnourished. So the mom has this structural deficiency because her mother was malnourished, and then her kids have these structural deficiencies and might have a lower IQ and might just, have allergies to everything and leaky gut. It all stems from deficiencies.
Fat deficiencies, calorie deficiencies, carbon deficiencies, or just deficiencies of all types?
It's mainly in nutrients.
Got it.
So
and that's minerals.
Carbon, so this is the thing. The carbon is the condominium or the mansion for the bacteria that make the minerals, that make all the different nutrients, the enzymes, all the things that biological things need to live. The bacteria are making that. You and I are friends with Dr. Mari Arce. Mm-hmm. Her whole thing is like microzyma. Yeah. Well, microzymas are more present in mediums that can house microorganisms.
Like living soil, yeah. Yeah, it does make sense. And it also it speaks to this kind of like uniformity sterilization thing you see. I see it a lot more starkly in the health and healthcare, pharmaceutical conversation, because I had somebody who I knew who's in the hospital not that long ago, and I went to go visit them, And I walk in to a building inside a room inside of a building, right? Like 3 layers removed before you're near the outdoors. And then in there's not a single organic thing. There's not even a house plant. There's not even a fake plant. There's not even a picture of a plant. It was just like, I felt like I was in a computer mainframe. Like it just looked like wires and synthetic everything. They brought in food at the time I was there visiting, and it was kind of like, what is that? It's wrapped in plastic. It's like obviously what they call like beyond food, not beyond food, but what did you say? It was like the new type of food you were learning that most of your college was going to major in.
Yeah. Meal replacement.
Meal replacement food. Yeah, not an actual meal. And we've known this about hospitals for a while, but it's underscored when you're just staring at it in the face. But what I'm coming to understand is that in the agricultural industry, it's kind of the same thing. You go in these grocery stores and it's got like plastic surgery versions of tomatoes and cucumbers and these uniform bananas that all look identical, and they look like, they don't have no fruit in them. Like my daughter was eating some orange the other day. She had a couple of them. I don't know where she got them. She didn't pick them, but it was some orange. Now we try to go for seeded fruit. We try to go organic. We try to go healthy as we can. But I've noticed a trend for a long time in that oranges just ain't orangey no more. They ain't got no kind of citrus to them. They ain't got no kind of sour. It's just a Kool-Aid packet with some like 3D printed paper that you can buy, you dissolve in your saliva, but otherwise you're just eating like Kool-Aid orange. Like there's no citrus, electrical, sour, nothing to it. Whatever orange this was like the 3D printed version of that. It was like way, I couldn't even eat the orange. And I realized this kid thinks that this is what an orange tastes like.
Right.
Like, I mean, we've had better oranges in the past, but like if she were to keep eating these and we just didn't pay that much of attention, her baseline for what orange tastes like would be this. And it's like a whole entire, it might as well be a 3D printed fruit. It tastes like it peeled with very little effort. You just rip the skin and you can almost just peel it in one go. It was like not dripping. My hands didn't have no orange residue on it. It didn't have no pith or whatever that comes off of it. You bite it, there was no seeds, and it was barely any juice, and it was 0.0% citrusy, like no sour, no tart, just Kool-Aid. And it wasn't even that sweet. It was just like, I feel like I'm chewing on paper with some orange spray on it. Get this out of my mouth. But I realized we're far into this. We're to the point where whatever that was sold and people bought it, and millions of people think that that's what orange tastes like. And I just happened to come across it.
That's why I initially answered your question with, if you're really into starting the homesteading thing, start with chickens. Because I'll tell you, I had that same exact experience though with chicken. I haven't liked chicken in forever. When I eat it in my body, because of the PUFA aspect and where my biology is at the current moment. If I eat anything with the PUFA in it, I get puffy. Like it gets super puffy, and I don't feel good. And my friend Adam, who you met,
Permy Bear Adam,
Mr. Permy Bear,
the raw milk plug,
raw milk, like all of it. He runs a real farm, and they have like, I think they raise like 200 meat chickens for sale a year. And so I bought his chicken, and I remember, I'm like, okay, I'll give it a whirl. And the first one I ate, I was like, do you have any more? Because I'm buying 12. Because when I ate it, it was like I was eating a turkey I had hunted for. I was just like, it had flavor. The joints were like strong, and I was just like, and I felt vital.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I haven't had real chicken
probably
in God knows
decades,
how long.
Yeah.
Because in Costa Rica, like the chicken that they used every chemical and every cheap thing you could ever imagine down there. And then, you go to any restaurant, they're not using, real
chickens,
free range chickens. they have to meet their food cost at 35%. I am telling you, when I ate his chicken, I was like, oh, okay, this is what chicken is supposed to taste like. I bet you there's whole swaths of people
food,
that don't even know what the real thing tastes like. When it comes to tomatoes and cucumbers. When I lived in India, India was like a food desert, because it's so
dry, like vast.
It's so polluted.
Sure,
and and there's so many people that they're just like, we're just gonna throw some curry on it and call it the day, right?
Yeah.
So us gringos over there trying to eat some like salads and stuff was stupid.
Yeah.
Because you eat a cucumber there's no nutrients in it, and it tastes like the metal factory down the road. You eat a watermelon there, tastes like the metal factory down the road. Everything had the metallic taste into it because the predominant thing that had been, being deposited in and around the place was metal. And it's just like, we are what we eats. I love that saying. I think
we are what we eat.
Eats.
We are what we eats. Interesting.
So like if we're eating a GMO or a hybrid that is being grown with standard practices of petrochemicals, we are eating petrochemicals.
Got it.
People don't understand that because the plant is eating the petrochemical. And we're eating the plant. We are eating the petrochemical.
Because it's part of the plant's, we won't say DNA to not trigger any common mutual friends we have, but it's part of the plant's resonant field of energy at that point. Just like everything, you are what you eat and you are what you eat eats. It's a cool way to make people think about something, because I think a lot of people have heard the phrase, you are what you eat. I don't think I've ever heard the phrase, you are what you eat eats. And I think that when I hear you say that, what comes to mind is this whole untapped landscape of, I've never really considered what I eat eats. You see what I mean? It's kind of, it starts the actual, okay, well, now I got to actually think about this again. It gets those gears turning, because most people just eat what they can afford. And within the context of what they can afford, we're all being sold. I grew up in the area where like lean cuisine was considered like the better option than like Mrs. Topher's. Like if you're gonna like sit at the dinner at the TV and like eat dinner with like microwaved plastic pre-made food, get the lean version. It's got 25% less sodium in it. And I was like, that's healthy, right? Surely somebody tested this, right? Sure. And I didn't eat it that much, but we all basically had, one of those. So, you ever used to get that stuff back in the day and you look in the inside of those packets?
I was very fortunate that my parents they fed me hot meals. The only time I ate like prepackaged meals was pretty much when I was in high school during lunchtime.
Do you second Owen's sentiment about his IQ and the whole breast milk thing? Because we talked about that a little at Elementals, but I remember when I first heard him say that, he's like, I'm not a genius. I just think my mom gave me like real milk and like cholesterol when I was a developing baby and didn't poison me as much as some other moms did. So this is the result of that. And so you're speaking as a very highly grounded and intelligent individual. But how much of that, I mean, nature and nurture, but I wonder if it has to do with the fact that your stepmom was hitting you with like, I mean, your childhood sounds like it was full of the more nutritious options for food. My parents weren't into like holistic alternative nutrition or anything, but they definitely was like ixnay on the Lunchables. There's no like juicy juices and all that stuff. We had very little Frosted Flakes and all that. So you had to eat the bran flakes, the healthy versions of everything, even though that stuff's not that great. But I wonder if some of what sticks you out from the average bear was part of that childhood diet that just actually allowed your brain to truly develop. Whereas maybe some other people.
My brain didn't really truly develop until I found butter right before my 30th birthday.
Oh, really?
I was a really angry young person, and it was mainly because in my family, my mother was a cardiac rehab nurse, and she ran this doctor. His name was Dr. Dean Ornish, who was famous around the world for teaching people about a low-fat diet. So my mother's mantra was low fat. And so we had nothing but margarine. I don't think I had any real fats. And then I was like, when I was in college, I was just doing the college thing.
Mm-hmm. The whatever my meal plan affords me thing.
Yeah. And, and then outside the meal plan thing, we were all like, rubbing our pennies together just to survive.
Some Wendy's fries for some 99 cents type thing.
Yeah. And so in the hubris of youth, like I tried everything from being a vegetarian to being a frugivore to being, an enlightened vegan, like all those things. But then I met this woman that she turned me on to Weston Price. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, like, because I was really big into the bodies and body shapes. Mm-hmm. And seeing the big jaws. And I just had this Rolodex of guys that I knew that had like the really like wide face and the big jaw.
Gaston looking jaw.
And I was like, yeah, all those dudes were like uber athletes. And in reading Weston Price, it was all about the good fats and the Activator X and the good oils and stuff like that. And dude, I tell you what, within a year of being in those circles and eating bone broth and eating, all those good fats, and then living on a farm, I was living on a farm where like I was literally, butchering and then eating the animals I was butchering. So I had like the full cycle going for the first time in my life. I had that moment that people talk about where their pineal gland, decalcifies. Yeah. It popped. Like it literally did a pop.
Oh, wow.
And I shit you not, I've been like 20 IQ points smarter since then. But all that was calcified because one, I never had good collagen. And I, even eating my stepmother's stuff, it was fresh in the sense that she cooked it and prepared it, but it wasn't like any of that stuff was organic. And when you look into like, the Cornish hens and all the different things that like they cooked a lot of like Cornish hens and duck and stuff like that. Like it's not the best. It's not the best thing to be eating, but when you're like a 15, 16, 17-year-old boy that's playing 3 sports, it's like you're living high on the hog, right?
Yeah, for sure. I was the same way.
So, dude, I ate a lot of food that was prepared freshly, but it wasn't the good fats. It wasn't the good things that would allow my brain to fully activate. So the anger I felt a lot as a young man was I always knew the answer was right there. I just couldn't access it. So I would experience so much intellectual frustration because I could never have a long form thought. It was almost like I could hear the echo of the answer, but I couldn't access it. I couldn't get it.
God, yeah. It's almost like when something's on the tip of your tongue forever.
Exactly. And so you could imagine how infuriating that was. And so literally I remember I was drinking really good water. I was showering in spring water. I was eating animals that I helped raise and I butchered. I was eating really good fats. I had raw milk, and like within nine months, maybe it was a year, that thing popped. And I remember telling my mate at the time, I was just like, oh my God, I have access to my mind now. Like I can think, like I can have a long form thought now. And that had everything to do with like having the good fats in my system. And I come to find out that your brain is by weight 75% cholesterol.
Yeah, I heard that. 75%, and the rest of it's like, well,
water.
Is water, yeah.
So the gray matter that everybody talks about that's in your gut and in your brain, it's all cholesterol. And so like literally I hadn't had good cholesterol.
Most people came cholesterol free. That to me, that's a big mind control paradigm.
You know what that is really controlling? You want to hear the real skinny of it?
No, go ahead.
The whole cholesterol thing is because men that have high cholesterol have high sex drive.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. When you find when you look at the typical man that has like a really high sex drive, his cholesterol is the mid 200s upwards in the 300s.
Oh, got it. It's like boner juice.
Because guess why? Your brain,
your
the gray matter here and the gray matter in your gut is when that is hypersaturated with cholesterol, you have the capacity to hunt.
Oh, well, yeah. Hunt for women and hunt for food.
That's what I'm talking about, man. If you can hunt, you can hunt for the booty at the same time.
I know, right?
Same.
One and the same. Yeah, little dinner. So,
dude, one of the funniest things that our mutual friend said when he was flying from New York back to what is it, Idaho. He had a connecting flight where he had to fly down to Atlanta, and he said the funniest thing. This is Owen. He goes, since when are black people not scary
anymore? Yeah, I remember.
And when he said that, I fell out because I was thinking that to myself too, because when I was growing up, all the brothers, man, they all ate. Like, first of all, they didn't eat that much, but when they did eat, they were eating like the chicken wings, and they were eating all the things that would be considered high cholesterol shit, right? Mm-hmm. They were eating that stuff, and man, they were aggressive.
Yeah. It's like the cholesterol and the 90s aggression kind of went hand in hand.
Hey, dude, now I see these commercials where it's this, they'll show these chubby black guys that have no bass in their voice, right. and they're all talking about, oh, I get my DoorDash, and it will be some vegan fare through DoorDash, and I'm like, oh my god, they've neutered the black person. They've neutered the black man. I want my Superfly from the 1970s with the big butterfly, right. Things, the platforms. Collar, exactly. And I want a cane, and I want my black people back because, dude, that you can neuter people through food, and that's what they've been doing. It's so evident in my lifetime how much they've neutered men. Yeah. And they've mainly neutered men. They've neutered the sexual libido thing on so many different levels, but one of the biggest things that they've done is they've done it through to food. Make cholesterol the enemy.
Yeah. So it's funny you mention this because I've had this conversation with another buddy of mine who's, I think, 8 years younger than me. And him and I were both talking about how if you were to go into the average high school right now, just waltz into any city, any random old high school, and you just count all the senior boys. He said, if you were to line up all those senior boys compared to the seniors when he was in high school, however many years ago that was, and especially when I was in high school, they're on average much more petite and much more kind of almost preemie looking baby type, just small framed in a general sense. And if you were to go back to your dad's high school class, everybody's six pack shredded up, and probably, I'm not saying everybody was a giant. I'm just saying, I'm kind of an anomaly, right? But
my dad was the midget, and he was 6 foot tall.
Well, there you go.
And then I was the midget at 5'9". I'm still am a midget, but like now I'm like the average or whatever. But
yeah.
I was jacked. I was 5'9", 185 pounds as a senior in high school.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
I could bench, 330 pounds. Like I was shredded. What we had to do as
almost.
What we had to do as a freshman in high school, just a standard public school. This wasn't anything special. We had to do 20 pull-ups and 100 sit-ups to pass
PE.
Our PE. And we had to run a mile. I think we had to run our mile in 7 minutes or less.
Wow.
There is not a single high school in the United States that has that requirement right now.
Yeah, at all. And I would say probably only the top 10% of any given high school could actually do it.
And they were talking, my PE teacher was pissed. This was 1991. He was pissed because he remembered back in the 80s when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the president fitness guy in 1984, after Terminator.
Right.
Ronald Reagan appointed Arnold Schwarzenegger as the thing. And he was saying, just a few years ago, you guys had to do 50 push-ups and you had to do, 45 pull-ups and you had to do 200 sit-ups. Like, wow. So just in 6-7 years, they had dropped the standards. And guess what? In my PE class in 1991, there was only 10 of us boys
that did it.
in a class of 50 that could do it.
Wow. And there'd be like one of you or maybe all the athletes and nobody else could do it.
And dude, Chris, it was crazy because we were even competitive with each other doing that.
You were or weren't?
We were.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Like all of us guys that could do it, we were like looking at the other guy trying to beat him.
Now, now that would be the opposite. Like, whatever, it's my truth that I don't want to do this.
Exactly. And all of us had a sex drive. All of us wanted the girls. Like, there was no confusion in any of that. Mm-hmm. And guess what? The girls liked the guys with the big arms and the buff chest, and they liked the guys with the big quads. I had all these girlfriends of mine that were black that would come up to me and they'd be like, Gardner, you got that black booty, Gardner. And they would be telling me, like, you're Bumblebee Butt. We're going to call you Bumblebee Butt.
You're like, all right, Quantisha, I'll take it. Keisha.
Because in that culture, like, if you didn't have a butt, you didn't have a chance, right?
At all, yeah. On either direction.
So for me, that, like, just having some semblance of physical prowess, that is all relating to the food, man.
Yeah. This almost dovetails very similar to the conversation that I had not that long ago. We were talking about circumcision and the whole like sex ed conversation, and the big anomaly we were highlighting is how the practice that creates scar tissue and restricts your penis from being the ultimate size that it would ever be is the same. It's like it's psychologically creating this loop where you want to be bigger, but like you can't even be the size you're going to be because cultural practices stymie that for a great percentage of boys. But this is like the food and kind of cholesterol version of that same kind of concept. We all want to be this bigger, stronger, athletic, more testosterone driven, bricked up, whatever dude. And then you find that your cultural practices make you the least possible version of that. Like you're going to be the small, like if you want to be bigger, good luck. Cause we're making you the smallest version of yourself based on these cultural things that are very abnormal to just a standard living and diet with if nobody intervened at all from the medical side of things or from the agricultural side of things.
Yeah, I use the term, the social engineering has actually done all the genetic engineering, and in that the social engineers popularize certain movements to give the demand away from the optimal genetics.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Especially how optimal genetics for you is probably different than optimal genetics for Pfizer. Like what Topher or myself or anyone watching this would consider optimal genetics are very, very different set of metrics than what Pfizer or Sanofi or GlaxoSmithKline or Merck or whoever would consider as optimal genetics. So I kind of look at this like I'm just big on pattern recognition, and I'm always trying to explain to the people I'm communicating with. Listen, I'm not an expert on everything, but what I'm really good at is identifying patterns. And the patterns that I see with just the amount of time I've spent looking at what's really going on in these various industries, the patterns all say the same thing, but they're all kind of speaking to this very much like Stockholm's, it's like a cultural, ideological Stockholm syndrome, where the very things that we've taught to find the very things that we were taught to find endearing are the very things limiting our growth, stymieing our growth, affecting our mental health and physical health, like our libido, our dick size, all these different things are being negatively impacted by all these things that are culturally considered the thing to do, the norm. Why would you eat butter instead of margarine? How about we go on this low-fat diet? Or you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, low sodium, low sodium, low sodium. Meanwhile, I'm over here talking to this like body electrician, like kind of like pH electrochemical specialist. And he's like, everybody's problem is that they have no sodium and no minerals and no electrolytes in their voltage to actually trigger the metabolic processes to act right, even if the nutrients were there, because they tell you to take the sodium out of everything and the salts carry the electricity so that your body can do all of the cellular functions. And I'm like, oh, dang it. Like, so they really
we were literally told, Chris, that our taste buds were wrong. We're told that, yeah, your body really really wants the salt and the fat and the sweet. That goes all the way back to the carbon. Mm-hmm. The fat is a hydrocarbon. The sweet is a carbohydrate.
That's right.
And the salt is the bridge between the two.
That's why salty, sweet stuff tastes so good, like ice cream and French fries.
Absolutely. You get that Wendy's little
Frosty. Oh, man, with the fries. Oh, say less. Frosty and fries. So good. It'll fix all your problems.
But we're told that that's bad for us. In a way, it is bad because now all the ingredients are food replacement. Mm-hmm. But back in the day when there was real chocolate and there was real cream in that chocolate shake, and then that wasn't coming from pasteurized milk. It was coming from fresh, whole milk, right? And then you had the shake made from that. And then the French fries were made from fries that were locally grown potatoes that were fried in peanut oil.
Yeah, that's a winning combo. So now all you're doing is inspiring me to get to my own personal French fry and ice cream creation phase of life where I plan on eating this every day. Topher said this was healthy, babe, so you can't tell me I can't have French fries and ice cream for dinner.
Jen's going to gaff me. I'm sure in the Sweden, she's from Switzerland or Sweden? I always get them mixed up. So in Sweden, they have the salty fish, right?
Yeah, it's like super salty, and I can't even take it. It's so salty, but yes.
And as a populace, how healthy are they compared to North Americans?
Way healthier on average. Sweden is kind of this, like they have a healthier approach to diet, and then they also have less of an assault against their, less commercialization. It's kind of just like it's industrialized, but it's like a culture that doesn't geek out on industrialization like the Western culture does. Mm-hmm. So I find that every time I'm there, all the foods and meals are a lot more like thought after. Mm-hmm. It's one thing when you're dealing with a chef or a foodie, but over there that just seems to be much more of a normal family kind of concept. Whereas here it's like, get a restaurant to do it all, or Postmates to bring it to me, or it's kind of you're absolving your food choices or your cooking choices outside of whether that's like a recipe you're following or some sort of like meal replacement concept. It's just a different culture altogether in terms of food, and they are healthier.
That's sure. Awesome. That's awesome. I saw that in Europe when I lived there. I was just like, things are more local. And even when they go toward their grain products at the time, they didn't allow glyphosate. And oh, by the way, from a petrochemical perspective, the biggest chemical that's made in the world, biggest meaning by volume, is glyphosate. And
I didn't know that.
Glyphosate is, all the Roundup Ready crops that are out there. The Roundup is a rebranding of this chemical called glyphosate. So
I didn't know that either.
When we're talking about the pinch of the Strait of Hormuz, there's no more urea coming from, whatever Middle Eastern country that was coming from. And now they have all these, pretty much, I think it's Bayer that owns, I forget what group bought Monsanto. I know it was Bayer, but I don't know who's distributing those seeds. Well, most of those seeds are Terminator seeds, which mean you have to buy new seeds every year. And all of them are desiccated with Roundup. All of them.
And don't they like spread to the neighboring farms and there's like a whole issue with cross?
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast. I don't really want to get into that aspect of it. What I'm trying to do with people with food sovereignty is be like, okay, the only problem that we ever have in life really is by externalizing authority. Mm-hmm. Let's not externalize our food as much as we have been. Like become more responsible with your own food. If you have land like you do, start simply with chickens and grow things that have high caloric density. Yeah,
like potatoes. Like
chickens. You start with animals.
Well, I'm vegetarian already. We eat eggs.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, so we eat raw milk and eggs and animal products. I just haven't eaten chicken in like 10 years. Maybe it's because I'd be eating like fake chicken. If I had some real chicken, it'd be different.
Well, it could be that, but even as vegetarians, you still need animals for your soil.
True, yeah, true. And we had already planned on getting chicken, so that wasn't wasn't an issue. I just came from a friend's house yesterday who has about 15 chickens, and I'm thinking, first of all, when we get eggs, because we go to that friend's house today, she has like tons of eggs, so we get eggs from them. And those eggs are way heartier, and like the kids love them better. My wife loves them. Everybody loves them. But the chickens are kind of just in like chill mode because they're not farmed in an industrial sense. They're just someone's personal chickens at a coop, so they're just kind of living life and roaming and doing their thing. And like chickens, that makes perfect sense. And I was probably going to be one of the first buys that we did. I was talking to Permy Bear for a good 30, 45 minutes about, so if I want a milk cow, like which kind of cow do you have? Like he was giving me all the pros and cons and the different type. But what would you say is like high caloric crops? Potatoes, right?
Potatoes are great. Root vegetables are usually they're a starch.
Right.
More often
carbohydrate.
And more carbohydrates
than a hydrocarbon.
And they can actually store. You want things that can store, unless you know how to do canning.
Well, I don't, but I got to get into that too.
I tell people a lot of times, like if you're going to get into growing a lot of food, and this happened, I saw this time and time again in Costa Rica, you start growing all this food and then you have no way to process it. You have no way to actually make it
do anything with it.
From an energy perspective. How do I store these calories? So I tell everybody right now, go buy 100 pounds of salt. Because unless you have salt, you can't store things effectively. Refrigeration, you'll see part of the thing that's going to happen with these, data centers and the rollouts and the water usage and things like that. And their energy usage is you're going to have tons of rolling blackouts. And in a rolling blackout situation, unless you have a high efficiency, chest freezer, you won't have the capacity to store your calories all that well unless you have
salt and an underground.
You have salt. Exactly. You have salt and you also have a root cellar.
Yeah. So that's
where you are, you could have a root cellar, right?
Oh yeah, that was one of the first things I was going to do is build a little root cellar, like kind of in this cave. There's a couple places where I think there might be some micro caves, which might kind of already be a natural root cellar. But there's definitely a couple places we could bore or dig for them. And my plan was to have, like, I've done a lot of mapping. We haven't broken ground on anything. We've done a ton of consultations and appraisals and measurements and all kinds of stuff like that. And a place to store food unrefrigerated was definitely high on my list of like infrastructure stuff after like tractor and like for side by side, like the basics to just get around and do the minimum. Was the next phase of it was going to be, okay, now once we figure out how to grow this stuff, we have to can it, preserve it, dehydrate it, or freeze it, or store it just underground. And where we are, it's so high up and it's in the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains, that it wouldn't be, I mean, the winter, anything through October to April, it's like you pretty much just lay it on the ground. It's going to be cold enough. But in those summer months, you know, we would have it in a place where thermally it could be regulated, where we could just go in there and it's pretty much cool temperatures. Doesn't matter how.
Yeah, to have a real root cellar is huge. And another thing I tell people before you even start planting, get to know your neighbors and know what they're growing. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I was all going to get into bees and beehives and honey because in a pinch, you can turn honey into an alcohol. It's obviously a food. Mm-hmm. But they show in depression era times in any country in the world, this isn't just, United States, you need things to barter with. And alcohol, if you can make some sort of mead or you grow fruit on your property where you can actually convert that carbohydrate into an alcohol, you will always have something that you can barter with, right? Mm. Well, I was like, oh, we'll do honey. Well, the thing was, I found out within days of moving into this place that my neighbor has 40 boxes of bees. That's what he does. He grows honey. So for me to do that here is stupid.
Because all the bees are just going to go post up over there.
No, it's not just that. It's that he's doing that work for me. I need to do something that he's not doing.
To benefit from all that fertilization.
We have to be reciprocal.
Yeah.
So, and I saw this time and time again in Central America is people would all grow the same thing, so they had nothing to barter with. And I'm like, no. You don't do that. You find out who is doing what around you. So around me, I have a donkey, plantation. I don't even know what you would call it. A donkey.
An ass farm.
An ass farm.
Yeah.
I have honey being made, and I have tons of cattle ranches. So for me to raise cattle or do any of those things is just dumb. What I should be doing is I should be growing the vegetables that my family likes and wants, which I do. I do the chickens and the biochar stuff here because that all works together and that helps build the soil. We'll raise our own donkeys and turkeys here. That way the calories are as local as they can get. And then I'm growing a fruit grove of multiple different types of fruit trees for both the fruit and then also the conversion into alcohol, if need be, for fuel or for barter. And we have a pond that this year I'm going to start to aerate and get the water to the right quality so that I can actually grow crappie and have fish, because none of my neighbors do that. So given a pinch, you're never going to be an island unto yourself. You're going to be a group of people that are going to be trying to survive.
Exactly.
And in that group of people, if you have different things, you're going to be much more resilient than if you're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I should actually find out I don't think my neighbors are growing much of anything now that I think about it. But
maybe your one neighbor has like a blackberry like thicket that like is endless blackberries.
Yeah, good point. And then I don't
You can take that off your list.
Got it. Yeah. I want to do muscadines. I love me some good muscadines, some grapes. So like potato wine, you can make some vodka. Obviously you can make fruit and distill it into wine. But what's another good high caloric, high yield crop? Because now that I'm thinking about this out loud, I'm thinking like root vegetables. I
don't know your region all that well, even though my family's from that area.
I think it's a 7A. That's what they said our zone is. our growing
Oh yeah,
zone?
even with all that, I'm learning what to actually plant. I've been more animal intensive. That's been my focus. So I'm like, for me, it's just like the calories because my wife has a condition where I have to throw a steak in her face every day.
Oh,
So
hey.
for me,
This could be a
what's that?
euphemistic steak or a standard cow steak.
A standard cow
Okay,
steak.
got it. Got to clarify on the internet these days.
So for me, ever since meeting her for 10 years, I've been like, how do I get steak in her face? Like that's been my focus. Now that we live in like steak rich land, I can actually now really start to understand what we can do with our land other than that. Like that's been my primary focus. So I'm not the most educated person with that. I'm starting a podcast with Mr. Permy Bear, and it's called the Fire to Soil podcast, where he's the farmer. Like he's the guy that's been farming for 20 years in this type of region. He's going to educate me on that when I'm going to educate him on the soil infrastructure side of things.
Got it. Fire to soil from the rocket mass heater into the mass that comes out of your rocket now that you've eaten it and it's processed 2 days later. And it was so delicious you ate it twice.
We call that Gurch chai around here.
Good shot. That was funny. So, well, cool, Topher. This has been a great discussion. It's been right about the
Yes.
2 hour mark.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like I can think of so many derivative angles. Like one thing I don't want to branch into it maybe we'll dovetail back to this convo later, but dovetailing off of the work that Sabrina does and the other focus that I've spent in terms of like the Internet of Bodies, Internet of Things side of the conversation, do you see any aspect of the wireless sensor networks and the smart dust in addition to the things like the hydrogels and whatever magnetoferritin or graphene or anything that might be in the atmospheric spraying that's affecting the soil? I guess maybe the fertilizer too, but maybe I guess my question is there any aspect of the biodigital convergence components that you see as this agricultural assault that you maybe haven't discussed so far today?
I see it as a sterilization.
Okay, got it.
And so for me, that's why I really, really impress upon people the reason why we want carbon is because carbon brings life.
And bacteria in particular, there are apartments for the bacteria.
That's what I mean. The microbes are like if you any terrainologist will tell you, if you were to totally
take the microbes,
sanitize your body and like take all the microbes away, you'd be dead.
You would just
you die.
Stop functioning as a system. Yeah, because
it's a syntropy. It's this reciprocal thing that's going on where whether it's our GI tract, or GI tract is external to our organs, or our skin, the two largest organs, they're like absolutely rife with
bacteria,
microorganisms. Those microorganisms the same way in our soil. Like if our soil, every time the microorganisms diminish because of lack of carbon, specifically fixed carbon, what occurs then is that soil just becomes inert. And then when it's inert, it's going all the way back to that juvenile thing.
Got it. It's almost like before puberty, like when a man is inert.
I would say it's not before puberty. I would say it's to be specific, it's the male adolescent from puberty to about age 17.
Got it. Where it's
which
able
is
to
by far the most destructive
zone of a male person's life.
The fact that any guy, I mean, now they're all neutered, but like back when we were coming up, like any of us that like came up and survived that period of time, hallelujah.
I know, right? With no bumps on your junk and no deaths, no broken bones.
I mean, dude, I was shot at a bunch of times. I have friends of mine shot to death. Like,
dang. You grew up in the harder streets than even I did, South Florida.
Violence, like extreme violence, in all of that. Like, that's that adolescent, like I call it the Prince archetype. It's the archetype of Aries. It's like the god of war. And it's the god of war because it's entitled and it's always insulted.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's an insult.
Well, the earth is being insulted. It's taking insult by all these things that you're talking about. It's insulted. It's literally like, F you. Like none of this synthetic paradigm that is trying to make it, past the point that it's not going to make. That insults the ground.
I can see that. I've gotten that general takeaway from several different discussions that I've had from people over the years of just our lack of treating it well. It's almost like the Toy Story concept. When the toys aren't played with, they kind of just get all restless and upset. It's almost like when the land isn't properly sung to and spoken to, and when it's got all this fake perfume coming out of the back of airplanes and all this synthetic additions to its otherwise organic reality, it starts to kind of get one of these like insult. It starts to give off the fact that you're not respecting its energetic stasis. And when a person is not rejecting my energetic stasis, it's called I get insulted. I get offended, and I'm like, go elsewhere.
Yeah. And it's so much hubris, man. It's literally like, whoever's masterminding this level of synthetic overlay, their hubris is total.
Oh yeah. It's like,
and that's why I think it's like, you and I have talked about this, off air. It's like, it is a power and a principality. It is that.
Yeah, you can tell. The hubris alone is a dead giveaway, but even beyond that, it's just kind of this. It's bigger than any greedy person.
Oh, yeah. No, this is from on high that's being down low. Like, it's like, this is the height of arrogance and hubris. And it fails. It does not succeed at what it wants to do. Mm-hmm. And so part of what I've been commissioned, and I fought it, by the way. Like, this isn't like something where I've always been like, yay! Like, I fought it and I had to be humbled. Like I've been told, like, no, you're going to do this and this because of this and this. And the carbon thing is big because the carbon is what actually anchors the signaling from the heavens. It anchors it into Mother Earth, into the ground. So from Father Sky to Mother Earth, that's what it's doing. It anchors that signal. So it's all signal and no noise. All this haze of synthetics. All that is noise to the real world, to the non-GMO, the non-hybridized, the Frankensteinian way of doing things. And so that noise, we can do a lot to cancel that noise and get all signal. We just have to build the bridge between the two. And we've been given everything to do that. This is not a hard thing. It's literally just converting what's already green outside into something that's black, put it in the ground, and you're good. Like, things are going to start to be better. It's just that.
Go ahead. It's just that what?
I forgot.
Well, I was going to say that's a good solution. That's it's good to know that, at least on the interpersonal level. And I say this to a lot of people all the time. I do present a lot of challenging. I mean, what we've talked about today is essentially like, hey, everything you've eaten is fake. And it offers you very little to no nutrients. Not everything, but most things. And that can be a scary thought, right? Especially if you haven't really grappled with this information. What I find very encouraging in the silver lining is that even if there's no legislating this away, or, there's no petition we can sign that just makes glyphosate illegal tomorrow, it doesn't matter if I'm just focusing on what I can do for myself or my family, because as far as my body's concerned, I made glyphosate illegal. Never mind what Donald Trump didn't want to do. So to me, that is an encouraging thing. I've had to at least communicate to people that I personally have graduated from the idea of saving America or this global kind of corporate salvation strategy or idea. And I'm more about personal, familial, and small community salvation strategy. And I'm not speaking like spiritually. I'm just speaking dietarily, living wise, like short-term stuff. And I don't carry such a giant doom and gloom fear about what the government's going to do, because I just know that no matter what they do, with these solutions like what Topher's discussing here, this is something I can actually do in my wheelhouse. I can actually go and learn from this guy how to take sticks and twigs and bark and trash from my own property and burn it real hot and pyrolyze it to the point of it converting into something that I can use to invite the bacteria and therefore the nutrients back into what I grow. And I don't need to worry about what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz in order to do that. Because if you do start paying attention to what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz, what you'll find is that somebody somewhere is pushing a button or a series of buttons to make it extremely likely that that is going to create a problem for your food supply. At the very least, your fertilizer supply, if not your entire gas production and everything down the chain. And that's, at this point, I don't even need to beat around the bush to say that that's purposeful. It's very purposeful. It's very pertinent, like that it's being done very targeted. And so versus legislating and fighting and warning, what we're trying to do here is say, listen, pay attention to all that. Just don't get caught up in the doom and gloom of what that can present, because if you're spending that same amount of energy focusing on carbonizing and therefore mineralizing your own soil, and then just starting with basic stuff, chickens and a couple veggies and fruits, you probably can get a lot further than you realize. And I understand that for a person who's never grown or farmed, that's a big stretch. It's a big stretch for me. I've never grown or farmed beyond just like a little hobby thing here or there. But it's a stretch that I've been repeating so much in my head that I'm finally at a place where I'm like, I could do this. I could do this. Mm-hmm. We could do this, you guys. Come on. Like, I know it's scary, but like, we don't have to actually be scared. We can actually do this. And if we do this in community, we got each other's back. And then I don't have to grow what you're growing, and you don't have to grow what he's growing, because we can all grow it together. And that,
and depending on when you air this, Chris, like a cool thing is like any of us right now, like, so what you could do is you could audit your last grocery bill with the vegetables you bought. Mm-hmm. And if you buy organic bell peppers, you're spending anywhere between $3 and $4 per organic bell pepper if they're a good size. You can go to your local farmer's market right now and buy a plant for the same cost of what one bell pepper
costs.
And that plant, if it's planted in biochar, if it's put in good soil, it's watered and all the rest of it, that could yield a lot more peppers than one.
Right.
And you can do that right now, like depending on when this airs. So like if you guys are still hearing this in May or maybe early June, every farmer market in the United States is open for business right now. Go get a couple starts. Just have a raised bed. I started with pots. Like, you don't have to like go out into your yard. Just have, some window that has sun, and just start growing these things inside where you could control the environment. And I'm telling you, the investment for one bell pepper will give you a whole pepper plant. And like when it comes to like a good tomato, like a good, like delicious tomato, like most people don't even know what tomato tastes like
at all, because they don't never taste them. That's real. It's all fake tomatoes.
Right. They're all eating a beefsteak slicer. That's what they're called. You don't get a slicer tomato. Get a different type of tomato. That's an heirloom seed. You get those heirloom seed tomatoes and you bite into it and you're like, oh my God, the flavor. And now you're in the seed cycle where now you can start taking the seeds from all these different things, save them for the next year. And now you're in the perpetual abundance that nature will give you. Especially if you learn how to make your own biochar, or you buy biochar, or whatever you're doing, you get that whole thing going, and man, it becomes such a massive saver. I mean, I think every year I spend between $50 and $100 on plants, which is nothing.
Nothing, yeah, exactly.
And then, I look at our grocery bill, during the winter, and that's like, half of one grocery bill that happens like 2 or 3 times a week, right? So like all of us are going to be touched by food costs. None of us are going to be immune to that. So unless you're like uber wealthy, which I am not, so I choose to do a workaround, growing some food, storing it, getting into the habit, because it might not be this year where things are like, untenable. But the way you and I know, especially with your 8 limbs of yoga, world financing decimation thing going on, the engineering is evident that good calories are going to become harder and harder and harder to come by.
Right. And it's going to be, I think it's going to sneak up on people. I think that in the same way that if you had said everybody 5 years ago, hey man, grocery prices are they're going up. Yeah. Nothing's like what I was when I was a kid, right? But then COVID happens, or let's just say 6 or 7 years, right? And then COVID happens, and the supply chain takes a little bit of it rocks a little bit. It doesn't break entirely, but it, gets broken in certain areas and sectors, especially like automotive industry and stuff like that. You can see how nobody was thinking 4 years ago as far as the automotive industry parts back up. Oh, I need to be worried about not being able to buy a car because some guy's going to eat a bat in China and get on a cruise ship in Seattle, and now no cars are available. Nobody put that thought process through their head. But yet, right. And still, people were dealing with an issue that snuck up on them if they were somewhere close to needing a new car. And I think that the same is going to happen with the food. It's like 6 years later, we're like, yeah, the grocery store is more expensive. I mean, I don't remember it being this much. And you can pretty much always say that sentence, but at some point, the parabola just gets a bit more steep. And then before you know it, next year's steepness is so far steeper than the steepness between this year and last year. Definitely. And then a year or two of that, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I got laid off, or I have a thing, or I have an injury, or I got a flat tire, or I got to buy a new tire, whatever random life thing happens. And now you can't afford groceries. Now it's like, but we can't cover this. We can't afford to get our entire grocery list because half of this stuff is triple or twice that it used to cost, and I'm seeing it happen in sectors outside of food already. Ask me why. I got a ton of hard drives laying around of all different types. And because my general practice is that I don't really delete old projects. I just archive everything. Mm-hmm. That's about to change because I go to I'm like, oh, I'm close to out of memory again. Let me go buy another drive. The last time I bought, I think it's a 20 terabyte kind of archive drive. I think that thing was $200. That same drive right now is $600 and some change dollars. Mm-hmm. The drives that I would spent $200 or $300 on in terms of the solid state SSDs, those are $1,100, $1,200 now. So 4x the price in 4 months. And
I just learned why too. That was my last pod that I just recorded.
Was it something unrelated to the data center chewing it all up, or is it something?
It was related to Singapore and Xi Jinping.
Oh, give us the elevator pitch on why, because I've only heard all the Micron and all the, SanDisk people who make the chips and the.
That's Singapore, excuse me, Taiwan. I'm sorry.
Taiwan,
I said the wrong country. So in a lot of very educated circles, it's pretty much known that Taiwan has already been annexed by China.
Got it.
Because Xi Jinping, he was the protectorate of Taiwan before he rose to power. And so
I never knew
he
that.
had all these incredible deals and knew everybody at the top microprocessor plants.
He
That was
pulled
his.
Scott Gottlieb. He did what Scott Gottlieb did with Pfizer, but he did it with Taiwan. I got
So he literally has them all under his wing now. And guess who they don't want to compete with?
Yeah, the next door neighbor with the biggest, you know what, on the block.
And the same next door neighbor that has also limited their oil from Iran, and the same next door neighbor that is friendly with a very small country that they find to be to be a nuisance.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So Taiwan, for people who might not know, Taiwan does produce a tremendous amount of the microprocessors, chips, like RAM. Not all, but a lot of your electronics are manufactured in Taiwan. They're assembled in China, and the Chinese factories like pull parts from everywhere and put these devices together. But a lot of the actual core components are made in like Taiwan or the Philippines or Cambodia or, different places just kind of over generally in that area. But Taiwan is there has been some geopolitics that's a bit unusual about their relation with China and their relation with American capitalist product manufacturing in particular. And I'm sitting here going, it could be Xi Jinping, it could be the AI data centers, it could be both, but the general consensus that people at multiple electronic stores have told me is that all of the manufacturers have ceased consumer-facing contracts, meaning you go and buy like a Western Digital hard drive, and whoever's making the physical drive isn't making it to sell to Western Digital's consumer department anymore. It's going straight to enterprise stuff or government stuff. So there's no so I remember walking out of that micro center the other day and being like, okay, they want $1,200 for this 4 terabyte hard drive, but I can go and buy 4 terabytes of Google for less than $12. Like it's obvious where they're wanting people to store their information. They don't want you to have it. They want it to be on the cloud or nowhere. And they're making it so ludicrous that if you want to store 10 terabytes of information, you're going to pay $1,000 to store it locally, or you're going to pay $10 a month forever to store it on Google server somewhere. And
so you could see the data to food analogy exactly. It's exactly the same. We're gonna make it super cheap. I mean, you're gonna be able to go get that quarter pounder
for a quarter.
Your entire life.
Exactly.
You'll always get that. But the lack of calorie is analogous, or the lack of nutrition is analogous to you not being able to store it.
Good. Oh, I see. That's a great point. I wasn't even thinking about it like that. That's a great point. It's also not in your control to modify.
Right.
Really.
Right. So if something occurs outside that breaks the just-in-time system or breaks the flow in any way, like let's say, people start to coof a lot, and then it's like, oh no, I have AIDS. Let's wear masks. Where's the toilet paper? If that happens again, guess what? The nutrient balance is so the nutrient deficit that people already have when the convenience is here.
Right.
That when the convenience is gone, guess what happens to the nutrients?
It goes way down. It's like it's like a bad situation gets made worse really quickly. Mm-hmm. Because if you're eating 10 calories a day, 10 functional calories a day in a cheap but available meal, and you could be eating 100 calories a day in a more expensive but also available meal, what happens when that meal availability, both options, disappears?
Right.
Your 10 calories is gone, and the ability to get 10 times 10 is gone, and good luck affording the 100-calorie meal.
You got it. That's it. That's it. So that's why I had this on my heart to talk to you today. And that's why I have to bolt pretty soon here.
Because you got another. Yeah, you got to.
I really want people to understand that this is no longer theory. This isn't what you've been educating people with just the overall, like your tentacle map is just out of this world. This is not theory. This isn't like fear mongering, because we're not even coming from that space. It's just like start now, start the habit now. We're not saying like you have to have it now. Just start getting in the habit. Mm-hmm. And just like they did in World War II, where people had victory gardens. Just start a victory garden. And if your kids ask you victory from what, just say victory for life, whatever. You start your victory garden now. You start it small, and you just get in the habit. Just get in the habit of watering something outside, or planting something, or tending to life, because life begets life. Yeah. If you give to life, life will give to you. It's that simple.
That's a great way to end it. If you give to life, life will give to you. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that statement. And I also think that you don't need to be like Monsanto level food production on week one. Not only do you never really need to be that scaled up, because food is super abundant, and it's good real food spoils pretty quickly. So you actually want to either preserve or consume like pretty quickly. But I like the thing that's been described to me is if angels and spirit guides and all the good, positive, ethereal things, forces in life are giving us discernment and intuition and suggestions on warnings, like harbingers, so to speak, they tend to do that, at least in my experience. The harbinger is way more serious than it actually technically needs to be, because if you're warning somebody and you're like, hey, in like 10 years, you're probably going to like want to maybe be an expert at this. They're probably going to wait till you're 9.5 and be like, okay, What was that thing you said I need to do? But if you're warning them, hey, get an expert, hey, do this, hey, do this, hey, do this, enough of the internal nag develops into like, okay, let me start, so that by the 10-year time, you're actually up to speed on what it is you need to be up to speed on, versus if no urgency was ever present in the warning. So Topher's not suggesting that this summer you're not going to have any options for food. I'm not suggesting that. I'm simply saying maybe by next summer, or maybe by 2 or 3 summers from now, or maybe never. Maybe there will never be a time where you don't have options for food, but all the many options you do have a decreasing amount of nutrition in them. So you can't even get healthy when you're trying. What we're talking about are practical solutions to avoid either of the 2 scenarios that I just mentioned. The infrastructure breaking down, the just-in-time food delivery system breaking down, or none of that breaking down, but the nutritional value of it all breaking down beyond the lower threshold than it is now, to the point where if you need to actually get healthy from something, you're going to have to actually figure out how to get you some biochar and get you some nutrition in your soil, and actually start ingesting nutrients the way that they're supposed to be ingested. Because at this point, you basically have to take matters into your own hands for you and your kids, if you want your kids to have any nutrients in their genome at all. Mm-hmm.
And another way to put it too, just to like keep it light if people need it to be light, is that because I've been a foodie my entire life, I've attracted other foodies in my life also. And there hasn't been a single chef that I've met, a good chef that I've met, that doesn't have an excellent garden. They're not gardening because of some scarcity that might happen down the road. They're gardening because they're a foodie, because they want the best quality.
Yeah, which is a whole nother way to approach it. That's a good point.
And so, like, let's say the Strait of Hormuz opens up, Trump does his dealing thing, and like we all get 10 Bitcoin in our CBDC.
Trump wallet.
Let's just say it all just like is flowers,
Your Nasara package finally arrives.
Great. Even more now you have even more time to increase the quality.
Yeah.
What we're talking about isn't necessary quantity, even though it might turn out to be a quantity deficit if things really go sideways on us. But let's get out of the quantitative way of thinking of it and get into the qualitative of like, no, I want my daughter to eat a real tomato. I want her, like my daughter now, she is a food snob. Thank God.
She's like, Dad, what is this? Ketchup? What are they using and stuff?
Literally. And I'm like, that her standards are
up there. That's good though.
Exactly.
That's good. She's going to be all right in the future. And a lot of kids will. I think a lot of kids will, especially when the odds are if you're listening to this and you haven't flipped off and you made it this far into the conversation, that your kids is going to be all right. Because you are interested in the things that will help lay the ground to make them all right. If they're not already grown and gone. Mm-hmm. And with that, that's a fantastic place to wrap it up. Topher, thank you so much for hanging out.
My pleasure, Chris.
I appreciate your insight and your wisdom, and I appreciate your grounded approach to what could be a scary prognosis, like a bleak outlook on the landscape of agriculture. I think you bring fantastic points, and I'll be sure to link below where people who are interested in your biochar can actually get that.
Awesome.
Or where they can connect directly with you. But for everybody watching, thank you so much for your time. It's another installment of the 6'7" podcast where we try to look at the taller perspective on life and things. And in today's episode, we had a great time just discussing I feel like it would be like how to put the quality back in nutrition.
Yes. Yeah.
Nutrition,
that's a great way
quality versus quantity versus scarcity. Like maybe something in that vein.
That's brilliant.
All right, y'all. Have a good night. Topher, thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Awesome.